If you ever tried to make a tiki cocktail, you might have been overwhelmed by the long list of ingredients and the obscure flavored syrups that they call for. Fear not, today we're covering all the essential tiki syrups you can use to make almost any tiki cocktail. And we're making several DIY syrups using easy-to-find ingredients. Hey folks, how you doing today? Welcome back to another episode of Bob's Bottom Shelf, where you save money making cocktails at home using affordable and accessible ingredients. So we got all our homemade syrups here and our store-bought syrups here. We got simple syrup, honey syrup, cinnamon syrup or Dawn Spices No. 4, vanilla syrup, passion fruit syrup, Orgeat syrup, molasses syrup, which is going to be our stand-in or substitute for Demerara Syrup. We got Dawn's Mix, Dawn Spices No. 2, Falernum, Allspice Dram, cream of coconut, mint syrup, Grenadine, and ginger syrup. We're also going to speculate on the lost and unknown Dawn Spices No. 1 and No. 3. And there are two syrups that I don't have, Fashionable syrup and Gardenia mix, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So to make all these homemade syrups here, we're going to have to gather a few things. We're going to need some mason jars, some bottles, and just a few ingredients. First, we're going to make cinnamon syrup. We're going to do a 1-to-1 ratio of sugar and water. Add 1.5 cups of water. Add 1.5 cups of sugar. Stir and simmer for about 5 minutes. Add in about 1 ounce of broken up cinnamon sticks. You can't use ground cinnamon for this one. You're going to have to get real cinnamon sticks. Simmer for about another 5 minutes while stirring. Let it cool down for a while. Then transfer it to a bottle or a jar. Next, we're going to make our passion fruit syrup. It uses a 1-to-1 ratio of simple syrup and some passion fruit pulp. We're going to need 14 ounces total of our 1-to-1 ratio simple syrup, plus another 14 ounces of passion fruit pulp. We can use fresh or frozen, whatever you can find. I found some frozen Goya passion fruit pulp from a Mexican supermarket, so measure out 14 ounces of simple syrup. It's easier if you do it after it's already cooled down. Don't do what I did or you might make a mess. Then add 14 ounces of your thawed passion fruit pulp. Stir and simmer for another few minutes. Let it cool down, then preserve with some rum or vodka if you like, then transfer it to a bottle or a jar. Next, we're making some vanilla syrup. It uses a 1-to-1 ratio of sugar and water, plus 1 or 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract. I did 1.5 cups each of water and sugar because we're gonna use some of this later to make Dawn Spices No. 2. Stir and simmer the simple syrup base for about 5 minutes. Then add 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract. Stir and simmer for about another 5 minutes. Let it cool down for a bit. Preserve with some rum or vodka if you like. Then transfer it to a bottle or a jar. Next up, we're going to make some Dawn's Mix. It is 2 parts of fresh squeezed grapefruit juice plus 1 part of our previously made cinnamon syrup. I came up with about 10 ounces of grapefruit juice from 2 large red grapefruits, so we'll add about 5 ounces of cinnamon syrup to that. Pour in that grapefruit juice, stir and simmer for about 5 minutes, and then since I just had them laying around, I re-added the cinnamon sticks that I used previously, and I let it simmer for another few minutes just to really let those flavors infuse. Let it cool off, transfer it to a bottle or a jar. And since this is fresh squeezed citrus, I would recommend preserving this with a teaspoon of vodka or rum, unless you plan on using it right away. If it's gonna sit in your fridge for a while, I would preserve it. Next, we're going to make some molasses syrup, which is our stand-in for Demerara syrup, and it could also stand in for a rich simple syrup. The ratio is a little bit different. It's 1.5 cups of sugar to 1 cup of water, and then we'll add 2 tablespoons of grandma's molasses. Bring it to a boil while stirring, then reduce heat and simmer for a few minutes. Let it cool down, then transfer it to a bottle or a jar. Next up, we're going to make some homemade Orgeat syrup. I'm going to use the same clips I've already used for 2 episodes. We're going to add 1 cup of unsweetened almond milk. Add 1.5 cups of sugar. Then bring it to a simmer while stirring. Add in a 1/4 teaspoon of lemon extract. Add a 1/4 teaspoon of orange extract. Another 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And last, a 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract. Don't forget to stir while it simmers for about 5 minutes. Let it cool down, then you can transfer it to a bottle or a jar. And if you like, you can preserve it with a teaspoon of rum or vodka. Next is our simple syrup, which you've already seen me make about 5 times already. It's just simmering a 1-to-1 ratio of water and sugar. Then you can transfer it to a bottle or a jar here. And then we have honey syrup. This is the easiest of all to make. It's easier to make than simple syrup. You don't even need to simmer or boil any water. You can literally just use warm water out of your tap and use a 1-to-1 ratio of that warm tap water and some honey. Shake it up, and there's your honey syrup. Next is Dawn's Spices No. 2, which is just a 1-to-1 mixture of the previously made vanilla syrup and this Allspice Dram here. Disclaimer, I have seen various recipes on exactly how to make this Dawn's Spices No. 2. They vary. The 1-to-1 mixture of vanilla syrup and Allspice Dram is the most common one, so I'm just going to go ahead and go with that. Although I can't say for 100% certainty that's what Don Beach had in mind with his Dawn's Spices No. 2, so it might alter the flavor profile of what he originally intended. So we've made Dawn's Spices No. 2, which is the cinnamon syrup, and Dawn's Spices No. 4 here that we just did, the vanilla allspice dram syrup. But what about Dawn's Spices No. 1 and No. 3? There might be some evidence to suggest that Dawn's Spices No. 3 was or is ginger syrup. In an interview, a bartender from New York, Brian Miller, stated that Dawn's Spices No. 3 was mostly a mystery, implying that he knows something about it. I can't say where he learned that thing from. It doesn't really go into that in the interview. But then later in the same interview, he does list ginger syrup in a context that would make sense for it being Dawn's Spices No. 3. There's a link in the description to that full interview where he talks about that if you want to check it out. But as far as Dawn's Spices No. 1, I have my own ideas and speculations about that one, so if you want to hear more about that, maybe later, leave me a comment below. But also, given what we know about the rivalry between Don Beach and Trader Vic, it's quite possible that Dawn's Spices No. 1 and No. 3 never really existed at all. And he just listed No. 1 and No. 4 in an effort to confuse his opponents. Who knows? And on the subject of lost and unknown syrups, there's also Fashionola syrup. We know it existed or exists, but what we don't know is what the original recipe even was. We know it was mostly passion fruit flavored and it was red, but where the red came from, I guess it's speculated that maybe it was some strawberries, cherries, raspberries, and it was just a very passion fruit, red, fruity flavored syrup. But we're really not sure. So when something calls for Fashionola syrup, we usually just use passion fruit syrup. In fact, the Hurricane cocktail from New Orleans was originally made with Fashionola syrup, but that's kind of a whole other rabbit hole we can get into at another time. It is possible to buy Fashionola syrup, at least what the company's idea of what they think it was. It's easy to find online to buy. And speaking of syrups you can buy, we got a couple more here to go go over. We got a store-bought ginger syrup, which might be Dawn Spice's number 3. This was an impulse buy. I just happened to see it, so I bought it. You could just easily make ginger syrup yourself at home using some ginger root. It's not an extremely common ingredient for Tiki cocktails, but it is used sometimes, so it's a good idea to stock it just in case you want to use some ginger flavor in your cocktail. And next we have some Grenadine, which is quite common in some old school classic, very spirit forward cocktails. And it's also a frequent ingredient you'll come across in making a lot of Tiki cocktails. Traditionally, it's supposed to be like a pomegranate syrup, but the stuff you buy in the store like roses, it's not pomegranate syrup, it's red corn syrup. But this stuff, the Master of Mixes, this is like it does use pomegranate juice and it uses cherry juice, and it doesn't use corn syrup, it uses sugar. It's easy to make it yourself, or it's just as easy to buy this if you don't want to make it yourself, and it's pretty good because it's not just red corn syrup. And with the same brand, we got some mint syrup. Master of Mixes mint syrup. This isn't really an essential thing to have around. It's just like a backup to have around in case you can't find fresh mint. Because the grocery store by me, they're always running out of fresh mint, so I just figured you could stock some mint syrup as a backup plan. And next we have some Falernum. You can either get this very low ABV 11% Velvet Falernum by John D. Taylor, or you can get just the regular syrup Falernum. You can find it online or you can make it yourself. Its primary flavors are almond, ginger, lime, and cloves or allspice usually. And this is quite a common ingredient in Tiki cocktails, so you're gonna wanna get some kind of it, either the liqueur or the syrup. And we have some Allspice Dram, also known as Pimento Dram. It's made with allspice berries and Jamaican rum. It's also a very common ingredient in Tiki cocktails, so you're gonna wanna try to locate some, or you might be able to look up a recipe to make some yourself. I have seen allspice berries in the store, so I know it's possible. Last but not least, we have cream of coconut. I find the Real brand here to be just better quality than the Coca Lopez stuff you find, the cream of coconut. You'll find the cream of coconut frequently called for in some Tiki or just regular tropical resort cocktails, so it's something you're gonna want to stock. And I know a lot of people nowadays are not using this exactly. They're like doing a mixture with coconut milk, and I don't know, we'll look into that more later. And there is one more syrup that I don't have. It is Gardenia mix, and the only reason I don't really have it is because, as far as I know, it's only used in one cocktail, and it's not easy to stock because it's made with butter, and butter solidifies at room temperature, so you're constantly having to warm it up if you want to make this one specific cocktail. So it's not really something I'm gonna bother to stock. If I ever get a craving for a pearl diver, it's something easily I can make up, and maybe later we'll go into that. And on that note, that's gonna just about do it for our episode on Tiki syrups. Hopefully we were able to clear up any confusion there was about these flavored simple syrups or Tiki syrups, whatever you want to call them. Don't forget to leave me a comment if you have something to say. Subscribe if you like what we're doing here, and I'll see you in the next episode.